who showed up because it was an event, because they were, like, as you put it, PO'd about something.
Right, like the guy who dresses up as the Musket Man or the Minuteman at the Tea Party.
Right, he's not the person who is the best spokesman for the Tea Party. The Tea Party has a specific point. Right. But the people, waving their arms around and hyperventilating.
The guy dressed as Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah, the Benjamin Franklin guy. The people with the misspelled signs.
Lives in his parents' basement.
We can't judge every mass movement based on the people on the edge of the crowd with misspelled signs. Right. But and the Occupy movement, after the sit-ins and stuff were over, they were continuing to raise money for interesting causes.
Oh, so, no doubt. And they've done, once this young man and I had kind of gotten past the whole hate speak, they talked about some bleeding-edge legislation that they'd helped get passed through in Maine against GMO. Right. So, I mean, so then all of a sudden you say, okay, you know what? I'm a libertarian, and I'm on board with you on that. Mm-hmm. And then there was there was this shocked cyber silence, and ruh-roh, middle-aged PO'd guy who hates government agrees with me. Ruh-roh, what do we do then?
Well, part of that's a PR issue for the Libertarian Party, because it's not, the party itself isn't fully formed at this point. No offense to your party.
No, that's fine.
You know what I'm talking about.
No, there's this cognitive dissonance that exists between us and the Republican Party, just like the Greens can't, distance themselves quickly enough from big corporate Democrats. Right. And
on the one hand, I don't think any of the new parties that may be emerging want to become lockstep dogmatic parties the way the other ones are becoming. But at the same time, that means if you talk to 20 people who call themselves libertarians, you may get 20 different ideas about what that means.
No, and that's fine, as long as they're somewhat within, and here I don't want to, mimic the same type of, ideologue speak, if you will. That's fine, because there will always be deviations within a group of people.
Yeah, I mean, there are libertarians who believe there should be hardly any laws at all, and who would be outraged at the idea that Monsanto is prevented from doing exactly what it wants to in Maine now.
Right. Again, they want the Lord of the Flies. They seek a regulation-free world.
What's the idiocracy, where there's basically a logo everywhere and nothing really works.
Sort of like Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Okay. No, it's.
Have you seen Idiocracy?
No.
It's a funny movie. There are deep flaws in it from the very beginning, but basically the premise is that a very average couple of strangers gets sent supposedly into the future for a small number of years to test stasis, and accidentally they get sent 500 years into the future, where everyone is basically a drooling idiot. So they end up being essentially, the king and queen of the country because...
So you're saying Rhode Island government is on the leading edge?
We might be on the leading edge.
We're ahead of our time?
Yep.
Well, like Mr. Rickman said last week, I mean, it is amazing what... Look at Mr. Harrup, missed the chairmanship of the Rhode Island GOP by one vote. I mean, if he could have rounded up two more friends, that quote-unquote major party would be in a completely different direction. Like Mr. Rickman talked about, you pull up 6 friends, you could take over the GOP. You pull up 10 friends, you could probably take over the Democratic Party in this state.
The GOP would be easier to take over.
Yeah, you just have to find 5 people willing to identify themselves as GOP members,
right? Just aren't mortally embarrassed.
So I couldn't take it over.
No, you could.
That's my issue with the idea of quote unquote taking over the GOP, is that whatever you're trying to do, you are taking over a failed brand. So, like I made mention of before, a new car company isn't going to come out and say, we're the new Hugo. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. No,
they can if they want, but geez.
Right. And some of the threads I've seen you comment in, Tony, where people point out, well, maybe if we just got this person on board and he ran as a libertarian, then we could win an election.
Right.
Well, what's the point? That makes, a willingness to sacrifice one's core beliefs make you a Republican. Or to take one obscure part of it and twist it so completely out of proportion, that makes you a conservative Republican. All right, so it's we don't need that. I would much rather toil in obscurity for a few more years and bring people around to a point of view that's based on some level of intellectual conversation.
Right.
Well, you're going to be responding to a lot more hate mail if you decide to do that. My issue with the hate mail is that and luckily nothing's happened yet. Although I have had some uncomfortable conversations. Is that people know where to find me? People know where I live.
I was about to say I'm a little disappointed that I haven't gotten any hate mail, but maybe I'll change my mind about that.
Part of the reason that we're here doing this and that I'm here doing the Tony Jones Show instead of having a home setup, which I am more than completely capable of doing, is that I don't want to pull all kind of weirdos over to my house.
You mean like me? Yeah, okay. Well, you don't want to channel your inner Eric Bogosian? I agree with you 100%. There has to be, and I'll launch into the cliches here. Let's see how many I can pack into one sentence. A transparent new political party paradigm. You like that?
I think that's good.
Yeah, okay.
I'd also like to see the parties, instead of being as concerned as they are with their own self-preservation, actually stand for something.
Oh.
Not in a rigid lockstep kind of, you have to believe exactly the same thing I believe in order to be in my party, but in the sense of, what we saw in the last presidential election, this idea that, if Mitt Romney had said this differently or that differently, or if he had kissed up to the right number of Latino voters, they would be in power.
Patronize whatever group.
Yeah, as soon as the election was over and they looked at the stats, they suddenly announced that, hey, maybe we need to change our policy on immigration.
Which remains one of their most deeply held...
So, why would you be talking about doing this instant flip? A case could be made on either side or let's say multiple sides for different kinds of immigration policies. And that's why there's a big discussion about it. That's why we don't have, nationwide 100% consensus. You could make a case in either direction. However, jumping from we absolutely hold XYZ to, day after the election, I guess we have to completely flip XYZ on its tail.
Well,
because we lost an election. Do you stand for something?
Well, it is asking the Rhode Island, and particularly the Rhode Island Republican Party, a lot to step away from the ideological consensus and purity that evolved so that they could continue to support illegal subcontractors at large corporations, walk away from that in the interest of actually, A, a chance at something that might make sense to people, and B, something that might work.
Right.
Walking away from that corporate statist viewpoint is probably genetically impossible. It's so bred into them.
Yeah.
Yet at the same time, the desperation, the flailing of arms that went around after the last election was kind of enjoyable.
It was entertaining, but not for the right reasons. I mean, I'm not above being amused by that, but you're touching on an interesting point. The corporations want to be able to bring in cheap, undocumented labor, so lots of heat and light gets thrown around about immigrants this, immigrants that. Nothing really happens because nobody wants to make the corporations unhappy.
And so do the corporations, and so do the political parties. So it kind of becomes just a shell game, shuffle the paper.
It's a shell game. It's lip service to an idea that none of them actually support. They're only saying it because they think they think it polls well. But apparently it doesn't poll that well.
The biggest lip service I saw this past legislative session here in Rhode Island was the payday loan bill. Everybody got on board with that we can't charge people 300%. This is just awful. Everybody and their uncle signed on to that bill so they could go back to their districts and say, in a working class district, I was against this payday loan. Yet they had some of the most powerful, well-paid lobbyists supporting that payday loan bill, and it got squashed.
Yeah, mysteriously,
this huge bill that everybody supports, sitting on a desk.
Allegedly, the mayor of Woonsocket, the putative mayor of Woonsocket, the hyphen lady, I call her, according to the Yellow Journalist of Northern Rhode Island, toll-free Northern Rhode Island, she owns the building and helps support the brother who's in the payday loan business. Yet she's for the working people. This is what I've been told, allegedly. Listen, I'm not above spreading a rumor, okay?
Okay.
But you've got that, and you've got a former Speaker of the House who was hired, to do the right work on behalf of these folks. And you're right, everybody gives lip service. I'm just waiting for Lady Macbeth from Cumberland to say, I was lied to. It's again, the operative word for me lately has been cognitive dissonance.
Well, it's not. It's pretty transparent what's going on. A corporation waves money around and everybody switches sides.
Yeah.
Real quickly,
it's the payday loans. It's the immigration thing. It's
gambling in state, whatever.
Exactly.
Real quickly, before we go to break, back to our conversation about amoeba-like political parties. Ken Block, who I do support, how do you feel about him building up this third party, building it up, and then saying, maybe I will run as a Republican, maybe I will run as a Democrat, maybe I will run as an independent, maybe I will not run with this party that I built up? Is that the biggest flip-flop? Is that the biggest mistake, or
it's probably
is it just some pragmatism?
Well, it could be both of those things. He's probably being very pragmatic and acknowledging that it's hard to launch a third party. It seems a little odd that he can't decide which other party he would join.
Which party do I take over?
Yeah. Although, to be fair, if you're calling yourself the moderate party, I would assume you're positioning yourself between the other two, in some sense.
What I find offensive about it is that, money is expended by the electorate to support these parties. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a semi-exclusive club. Right after his last attempt at a major election, Christine Hunziker, for example, a number of his party apparatchiks, all fled to work for Lincoln Chafee. Okay, there's talking about a lack of ideological purity. Flash forward, it becomes abundantly clear, whether it be, and I politicians who should only go by one name, sort of the Shares of Rhode Island, the Gemma, the Block. Clearly, these people's ego transcends political reality, where they believe that an entire political movement should surround them. And as we can tell, the results have been nothing less than disastrous. So while anybody in this country is allowed to do pretty much anything, as far as I'm concerned, as a libertarian, one has to look at the results and say, what were these people thinking? and how does he expect to win as a Republican? If he's being a pragmatist, the folks from the Rhode Island Republican conservative wing will have nothing to do with him. I mean, it'd be kind of cool, actually. I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking about it out loud, actually, I hope he does run as a Republican. That would be kind of awesome. They can run against Fung. They can engage in mutually assured political destruction, and while the Democrats blow themselves up. And as we sit here as a media mogul, I just want to shout out to these folks that even though we may castigate you, humiliate you, make sport of you, we are willing to actually run your ads here.
Our door is always open.
Not only will we run your ads, but if you'd like to come chat about stuff and set the record straight, we're much more polite in public when people are in the room.
Well, exactly.
No, I'm not.
Tony's not.
Well, to which, I have made 3 calls to the current mayor, soon to be deposed, it would seem, Mayor of Woonsocket. I've called his office. I think I've called his home. I can't email him.
So you're stalking him at this point, basically. You're driving slowly past his house.
If you're going to stalk people, put on a press pass so you don't get in trouble.
Ooh, good idea.
The guy got crushed. Now, first of all, I want to make a shout out to a guest and someone who's become a friend, and we're going to have an announcement the next week or so about this. But Mr. Fisher, who ran for the mayoralty of Woonsocket, I have to hand it to him. He ran an aggressive, principled, shoe leather-based campaign. He was the only candidate to publicly express any real commitment to any issues whatsoever. He did so in person, at people's homes, electronically. He had a plan. And for him to have done as well as he did, my hats are off to him. He did not have the weight of either political party's financing machine behind him. He did it on shoe leather, strength of character, and a firmly held set of beliefs. So my hat's off to him. And a shout out to the folks in Woody. Boy, you're about to get exactly what you deserve, I think.
Seriously, I mean, if you have your ears open and someone's willing to sit down with you and discuss issues, why would you not choose the candidate who's talking to you and listening to you over the ones who basically say nothing more than, I'm the generic Republican, I'm the generic Democrat in this race?
Well, turnout was pretty low, but I mean, as someone who has been, doing this for a little while and pretty politically astute, I was even surprised that it was such a blowout landslide.
Well, maybe...
How low was the turnout?
Low. As low as you can go.
And still have a count?
Well, and that's why...
So 17 people showed up and voted?
That's why Mr. Fisher polled nearly 500 votes. I believe his Republican opponent was somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,000, 1,100. Don't hold that to me. But to get half as much as the incumbent established political party in a town that is hidebound by its political traditions is nothing less than astonishing.
Yeah, that is